Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine lying in a forest at night, the moonlight dripping through the branches, a soft wind brushing your skin. Everything feels silent. But what if I told you that in this silence, millions of voices are speaking right now? Trees whispering to each other, roots sending secret messages, flowers releasing invisible signals into the air. This is not fantasy. It's science, hidden deep in the language of plants. And tonight, you and I are going to uncover it. But before we step further into this world of secrets, let me ask you something. If you have ever wanted to belong to a place where mysteries unfold every night, where science feels like storytelling, and where silence reveals voices, then don't just watch. Subscribe now. Join this journey, because once you hear the whispers of plants, you'll never see the world the same way again. Have you ever walked through a forest and felt that strange weight in the air, that heavy silence that almost presses against your skin? At first, it feels like nothing is happening, just still trees, standing like statues, swaying gently in the breeze. But if you listen carefully, not with your ears, but with your imagination, you begin to sense something deeper. The forest is not silent. It is holding its breath. Every leaf, every root, every trunk is alive with invisible conversations. But the strange thing is, our human senses are too dull to hear them. For us, the forest is mute. For the trees, the forest is a marketplace, a library, a living web of signals. Pause for a moment. Think of a tree. You imagine it as still, passive, rooted forever. Yet beneath the soil, its roots stretch for miles, weaving into the roots of other trees. And here's the secret. When danger approaches, a hungry insect, a grazing animal, that tree can send a chemical signal through the air, or even through the soil, warning its neighbors. The trees nearby, upon receiving this invisible alarm, quickly prepare their own defenses, producing bitter chemicals in their leaves to repel the enemy. What looks like stillness is really strategy. Scientists once believed plants were simple, mute, almost mechanical. But discoveries in recent decades have shattered this illusion. Forests are alive with networks, not made of wires and machines, but of roots and fungi, a vast underground internet that connects tree to tree, plant to plant, carrying whispers across distances we cannot see. Imagine this: a mother tree, old and tall, rooted for centuries. Around her stand her younger saplings, fragile, reaching for light. Through her roots and the fungal threads that wrap around them, she shares her strength: carbon, water, nutrients. In silence, in stillness, she feeds her children. And when she is threatened, she warns them. This is not poetry. This is science. The still forest is, in truth, louder than any city. The language is not sound, but chemistry, vibration, electric pulses too subtle for our ears to capture. And yet, there is something haunting about this hidden communication. Because if trees can warn, if plants can share, if roots can whisper, then what else do they know? Do they feel? Do they remember? As you sit in your room, listening to these words, imagine yourself walking into such a forest, the ground soft beneath your feet, the smell of damp earth rising in the cool air. At first, you only notice the silence, but soon your imagination begins to shift. You realize every trunk you pass is not just wood, but a living being that is, in its own way, aware of you, watching, sensing, adjusting. You are not alone in the forest. You never were. And this realization is both comforting and unsettling, because it forces us to confront a truth. Perhaps the mystery of stillness is that it isn't still at all. It's simply moving at a rhythm too slow for us to see. Trees growing, roots pulsing, signals drifting like invisible threads through the air. A hidden heartbeat that runs beneath the silence. So, the next time you stand among trees, close your eyes, feel the silence, and know that the forest is whispering, not in words we can understand, but in a language older than humanity itself. A language of stillness, yet full of messages. And tonight, in this journey, we are going to listen together. When we think of communication, we imagine words, voices carried by sound, letters written on paper, signals flashing across digital screens. But nature does not need our alphabets. It has its own language, a hidden language that flows silently, carried not by voices, but by molecules drifting through the air. Plants, the quietest of beings, are in fact skilled whisperers. They talk in scents, in chemical clouds invisible to the human eye. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine standing in a meadow surrounded by grass and wildflowers. Everything looks peaceful. But then, a hungry caterpillar lands on a leaf and begins to chew. To us, it's a tiny act. To the plant, it is war. Instantly, the plant releases a burst of chemicals, alarm signals. Not random, but precise molecules tailored to warn and defend. These invisible whispers drift into the air, reaching nearby plants. And those neighbors, though untouched by the caterpillar, receive the message loud and clear. They begin producing bitter toxins in their leaves, preparing for an enemy they haven't even seen yet. It is as if one soldier cried out in silence, and an entire army instantly braced for battle. But the whispers do not stop there. Sometimes the signals drift farther, beyond the plants themselves. Predators, insects that feed on the caterpillars, can detect those chemical cries. And when they do, they follow the scent straight to the source, attacking the invaders. The plant has, in essence, called for reinforcements. It has dialed nature's emergency line without uttering a sound. Stillness, you see, is an illusion. Every leaf you pass may be buzzing with a secret code, carrying warnings or invitations through molecules so subtle you could never sense them. Scientists have spent years trying to decode these whispers. They've placed caterpillars on plants, measured the chemicals released, and compared how neighboring plants respond. The results are astonishing. Some species respond almost instantly, within hours, as if they were eavesdropping, always alert, always ready. Others remain quiet, choosing not to waste energy until danger is certain. It is not random. It is strategy. Each plant species has evolved its own dialect of chemical language, a unique vocabulary of survival. Think about it. Right now, as you breathe, your nose is filled with molecules that once belonged to trees, grasses, flowers. You might think you're simply smelling fresh air or forest scent, but in truth, you may be walking through conversations too old and too complex for us to translate. And here's the haunting part. We are only beginning to understand this silent symphony. For example, researchers found that acacia trees in Africa release chemical warnings when giraffes begin to eat their leaves. These warnings travel through the air to other acacia trees nearby. The untouched trees then pump toxins into their leaves, making them bitter, even poisonous. Giraffes, clever in their own way, have learned to avoid this defense by walking against the wind, browsing trees that haven't yet received the chemical alarm. An invisible battlefield plays out daily, right under our noses, carried by whispers we cannot hear. But let's step deeper. Plants don't just whisper danger. They also whisper invitations. Have you ever smelled the sweet fragrance of a flower? To us, it is beauty. To the plant, it is strategy. That fragrance is not meant for you. It is a message, a whisper floating in the air, calling to pollinators, bees, moths, birds. Each scent is carefully crafted to attract the right partner at the right time. A rose does not smell like lavender. A lily does not smell like mint. Each perfume is a code, a signal, a whisper sent across the invisible winds to guide life toward them. Even after blooming ends, even in decay, plants continue to whisper. The scent of ripening fruit, for instance, is a message to animals. Come, eat me, carry my seeds far away. The plant cannot walk. It cannot scatter its children. So it whispers through the air, persuading others to do the work. And in return, the forest thrives, generation after generation. Now imagine the scale. Millions of plants, millions of signals, all drifting, all overlapping in the invisible atmosphere. A constant storm of chemical messages, warnings, seductions, invitations, strategies. We live inside this storm every single day, blind to it, unaware that our world is humming with languages we cannot hear. But what if we could listen? Imagine if humans could translate the chemical whispers of plants. Imagine being able to stand in a forest and understand which trees are afraid, which flowers are calling, which fruits are begging to be carried. It would be like discovering an alien language right here on Earth. And yet, in a way, it is more alien than anything in the universe, because it is older, slower, wiser. There's something poetic in this thought. The forest is never silent. The meadow is never still. The garden outside your window is not just greenery. It is a vast council of voices speaking without sound, carrying secrets in the wind. And so, the next time you step outside and smell a flower, pause for a moment. Realize that you are not just enjoying beauty. You are eavesdropping. You are intercepting a whisper not meant for you. A signal crafted millions of years ago, refined in the dance of survival, floating into your senses by chance. Perhaps that is the true mystery. Plants do not need us to hear them. They will whisper regardless, weaving their messages through the air, a silent conversation that has been going on since long before humanity walked the earth and will likely continue long after we are gone. The silence you breathe is full of whispers. You are never standing in stillness. You are always inside a storm of voices. When we look at a forest, we see only the surface. Trees rising, leaves swaying, light trickling through branches. It feels alive, yes, but also separate. Each tree standing alone, each plant rooted in its own soil. But appearances deceive. Beneath the soil lies another world, a hidden network, a secret internet, older than humanity itself. Invisible to our eyes, but binding together almost every plant on Earth. Scientists call it the mycorrhizal network, but many have come to call it something far more poetic, the Wood Wide Web. Imagine this: billions of tiny threads, finer than a strand of hair, weaving through the soil. These threads are not roots. They belong to fungi, ancient, silent organisms that thrive in the darkness beneath our feet. These fungal filaments stretch outward, connecting root to root, tree to tree, plant to plant. And through this network, a hidden conversation takes place. The forest is not a collection of individuals. It is a society, a family, a living web. The first connection. Let's begin at the very start. A seed falls to the ground. A tree is born. But young trees, like young children, are vulnerable. They need nutrients, sugars, minerals, things not always easy to find in poor soil. Alone, the seedling might not survive. But then, the fungi arrive. Their filaments, called hyphae, slip into the tree's roots, forming a partnership. In exchange for sugar that the tree produces through photosynthesis, the fungus provides minerals, phosphorus, nitrogen, water, everything a growing plant craves. This is not charity, it is trade. A deal struck in silence, a contract written not on paper, but in molecules. And this partnership has been running smoothly for over 400 million years, longer than animals have walked the land. But trade is only the beginning. The mycorrhizal network doesn't stop at one tree. The filaments spread, connecting multiple trees. Soon, entire forests are linked in an underground mesh, a biological internet where information and resources flow. The hidden conversations now picture a mother tree, an ancient giant with roots spreading wide, branches reaching high. She has lived for centuries, storing enormous reserves of energy. But around her, young saplings fight to survive in her shadow, struggling for light. Through the fungal network, the mother tree can send sugars, minerals, even chemical signals directly to her children. She feeds them in the dark, quietly ensuring their survival. Studies have shown that these elder trees often favor their own offspring, channeling more nutrients toward genetically related saplings. It is not random, it is kinship, family ties written in root and fungus. And it does not stop with kindness. The network also carries warnings. If one tree is attacked by insects or disease, it releases chemical signals into the underground internet. Within hours, nearby trees receive the message and begin strengthening their defenses. A sickness on one side of the forest becomes knowledge for the other. This is not just communication, it is wisdom, shared survival. The dark side. But like every internet, this underground one has its shadows. Not all trees are generous. Some are selfish. Certain species, connected to the fungal web, siphon resources from their neighbors without giving back. Others flood the network with chemicals designed to suppress competitors, ensuring that rivals stay weak. Even fungi themselves are not saints. Some networks act like parasites, draining more sugar than they provide in nutrients. Others manipulate their plant hosts, forcing them into dependency. The underground internet is not a utopia. It is a marketplace, a battlefield, a society with generosity and greed, kindness and cruelty. And yet, despite this complexity, the network endures. Because in the grand balance, it helps the forest thrive. A forest of minds. Let's step back for a moment. What does this mean? It means that when you walk through a forest, you are not walking among individuals. You are walking inside a superorganism, a living brain spread across thousands of roots and fungal threads. Nutrients flow like blood. Signals travel like thoughts. Warnings spread like whispers in a crowd. The forest is not silent. It is alive with communication, below a threshold we cannot hear. Scientists sometimes speak of plant intelligence, not in the way we think of human intelligence, but in strategy, memory, and communication. A forest, through its underground internet, seems to remember threats, prepare for the future, and redistribute resources where they are needed most. Does this not sound eerily familiar? Like neurons firing inside a brain? Like a society woven of thought? The forest, in its own way, dreams. The scale of the web. Consider the scale. A single teaspoon of soil can contain several kilometers of fungal filaments. Imagine stretching those threads end to end. Imagine multiplying that by the billions of teaspoons in a forest. The scale is beyond comprehension. This network is not local. It is everywhere. Almost 90% of all land plants on Earth are connected through some form of mycorrhizal relationship. From rainforests to grasslands, from mountains to meadows, the underground web is humming beneath our feet. And here's a thought that may keep you awake tonight. Every step you take outdoors crushes thousands of these threads. You are walking on cables of life, an internet so ancient it predates humanity itself. The human connection. Why does this matter to us? Because it reminds us that individuality is an illusion, that life is not survival of the fittest in isolation, but survival of the connected. The trees share. The fungi weave. The forest thrives not because each part is strong, but because each part is linked. And here is the haunting question. If trees, voiceless and rooted, can build a society of exchange, warning, and memory, what does that say about us? We, who build our own internets, who claim to be the masters of communication, are we simply imitating what nature has been doing for hundreds of millions of years? Perhaps the internet in your pocket is nothing more than a pale reflection of the one beneath the forest floor. A whisper in the darkness. Now close your eyes and imagine it. Beneath you, under the soil, a billion threads are whispering. A young tree is fed by its mother. A sick tree warns its neighbors. A fungus threads its way between roots, delivering phosphorus like a courier. No sound, no light, only whispers in the darkness. And tomorrow, when you see a forest, do not see silence. See a hidden city, alive and connected. See the underground internet, weaving the earth into one vast conversation. The forest is not many. The forest is one. When we think of memory, we think of humans, of a face remembered, a childhood smell, the sting of a long-forgotten heartbreak. When we think of intelligence, we think of animals. The clever crow, the loyal dog, the whispering dolphin. But plants? Silent, rooted, voiceless plants? We imagine them as passive, unconscious, unthinking, just background scenery, green statues drinking sunlight. But what if that belief is wrong? What if plants remember? What if they learn? What if beneath their stillness lies a form of intelligence so alien, so subtle, that we have only just begun to notice? This is not poetry. This is science. The Venus flytrap, the first proof. Let's begin with the most dramatic of plants, the Venus flytrap. It sits innocently, a green jaw, waiting for the careless insect. But here's the puzzle. The trap does not snap shut at the first touch. One brush of its trigger hairs is not enough. Why? Because the fly could just be a raindrop, a false alarm. Instead, the plant counts. One touch, nothing. Two touches within 20 seconds. Snap. The trap closes. But the story doesn't end there. The plant continues counting, even after closing. 3 touches. 4. 5. If the struggling insect brushes the hairs again, the plant tightens its prison and begins secreting digestive enzymes. A mindless organism should not be able to count. Yet the Venus flytrap does. It holds short-term memory, a working clock ticking in its tissues. This is not reflex. This is strategy. The mimosa experiment. Do plants remember pain? Another experiment shook the scientific world. Researchers studied Mimosa pudica, the shy plant whose leaves fold inward when touched. They dropped water on the plant repeatedly from a small height. At first, the mimosa folded its leaves tightly in defense, as if bracing for danger. But after several drops, the plant stopped reacting. Why? because it learned that the water was harmless. Now comes the astonishing part. Weeks later, when the same plant was exposed again, it still remembered. It no longer wasted energy folding its leaves for the harmless drops. This was not instinct. This was memory. Long-term memory stored without a brain, without neurons, without a nervous system. Ask yourself, if a plant can learn safety from danger, if it can remember experience, what else can it do? The wisdom of trees. Memory. In the forest, memory is not confined to small plants. Whole trees seem to carry it. Consider drought. When a young tree suffers through a dry season, it adapts. It adjusts the opening of its stomata, the tiny pores on leaves that control water loss. If drought comes again years later, that tree remembers. It closes its pores more quickly than those who never experienced hardship. Like a human who never forgets hunger, the tree never forgets thirst. Even seeds, lying dormant, seem to know the right moment to germinate. Scientists have found that seeds can measure the length of cold winters and only sprout when spring truly arrives. They count the passing days. They store the record. This is memory without neurons. A wisdom written in molecules and signals, yet functioning much like ours. But how do plants remember? Without a brain. Here lies the mystery. Plants have no neurons, no synapses, no central nervous system. So how do they achieve learning and memory? The answer may lie in calcium signaling. Inside plant cells, waves of calcium ions act like tiny sparks of information. They trigger chemical cascades, just as neurons fire electrical signals in animal brains. These waves encode experience. Add to that epigenetics, the way genes can be switched on or off depending on past events. A plant stressed by heat or drought writes the memory into its genes, passing that resilience to future generations. In other words, humans write memory in neurons. Plants write memory in chemistry. Different language, same result. Plant intelligence, beyond reflex. If plants remember, does that make them intelligent? Consider this. Intelligence is not only about solving puzzles or writing poetry. Intelligence is the ability to adapt, to learn, to choose. By that measure, plants qualify. They calculate how much sunlight to absorb, how much energy to trade with fungi. They strategize, investing resources in roots during drought, in leaves during abundance. They communicate, warning neighbors of insect attacks through airborne chemicals and underground networks. They even manipulate. Some flowers release scents that mimic female insects, tricking males into pollinating them. If this is not intelligence, what is? It may not be consciousness as we know it, but it is something profound, a form of cognition alien to us, yet undeniable. The collective brain of the forest. Now combine this memory and intelligence with the underground fungal internet we explored earlier. When one tree survives drought, its memory can be shared through fungal connections, benefiting neighbors. When one plant resists pests, its warning signals prepare others. In this way, memory spreads. Knowledge becomes collective. The forest itself begins to resemble a brain, with threads of fungi as neurons, trees as nodes, signals firing across miles of soil. Perhaps the forest does not just exist, perhaps it thinks. The alien mind, next to you. Think about it. Every time you pass a tree, every time you touch a leaf, you are brushing against a living being that remembers, learns, and adapts. It does not have eyes, yet it senses light with precision. It does not have ears, yet it perceives vibrations. It does not have a brain, yet it stores memory, an alien form of intelligence standing beside us all along. The spiritual question. And here is the haunting question. If plants hold memory, if they adapt with wisdom beyond their silence, are they not alive in a deeper sense than we imagined? For centuries, poets and mystics have spoken of the soul of nature. Perhaps this was not only metaphor. Perhaps the intelligence of plants is one more reminder that life, in all its forms, carries mystery and awareness. The takeaway: the next time you see a plant, do not dismiss it as background. See it as a silent thinker, a keeper of memories, a witness of time, a blade of grass that remembers the footsteps that crushed it, a flower that knows when to open, a forest that learns through drought and storm. They do not speak our language, but they are not silent. Plants remember. Plants learn. Plants, in their own way, are intelligent. And when you walk through a forest, perhaps you are walking inside not just a living body, but a living mind. When we say feeling, we think of tears, of joy, of pain. We think of animals crying out when hurt, or humans clutching their chest when brokenhearted. Plants, on the other hand, appear numb. They do not scream when cut. They do not run when burned. They stand silent, enduring, still. But science is beginning to whisper something unsettling. Perhaps their silence hides not emptiness, but another kind of sensitivity. Perhaps plants, in their own strange way, feel. The myth of the silent victim. For centuries, humans assumed plants had no inner life. Aristotle declared them the lowest form of life, living, but without sensation. Descartes dismissed them as mechanical automatons. Even modern science long treated them as chemistry, not experience. But here's the haunting question. What if their reactions are not just reflexes? What if they are emotional illusions, signals of sensitivity that resemble feelings, even if we cannot hear them? The language of distress. Let's look at what happens when a plant is wounded. Slice into a leaf, and something remarkable occurs. The plant releases jasmonic acid, a chemical distress call. This signal spreads through its tissues, warning other leaves to strengthen defenses. In some species, airborne chemicals float into the air, alerting neighboring plants to prepare for attack. It is as if the plant not only knows it is hurt, but announces its pain. Imagine standing in a quiet forest. You see only stillness, but in the invisible air, trees are crying out chemical warnings to one another, a silent orchestra of distress. Is this not a form of feeling? Not in the way humans define emotion, but as an ancient biological response to harm. The sounds of suffering. Now here is something even stranger. Recent studies have recorded plants making ultrasonic sounds when stressed. Tomato plants deprived of water emitted clicks in the range of 20 to 100 kilohertz, far beyond human hearing. These sounds were not random. Different stresses produced different acoustic signatures. To the naked ear, a tomato plant looks calm. But with the right microphones, you discover it is literally crying out in thirst. Think about that for a moment. Every time a field dries under the sun, a chorus of invisible cries fills the air, unheard by humans, perhaps heard by insects or animals attuned to those frequencies. The forest is not silent. We are simply deaf to its voice. Do plants know love? The experiment that shook the world. In the 1960s, a man named Cleve Baxter, a lie detector expert, performed a curious experiment. He attached electrodes of a polygraph to a plant leaf. To his astonishment, the machine registered fluctuations similar to human emotional responses. When Baxter merely thought of burning the leaf, the plant's signals spiked wildly, as though it sensed his intention. His results were controversial, criticized, even ridiculed. Yet the idea took root in the popular imagination. Do plants feel our emotions? Modern science remains skeptical of Baxter's conclusions. But one cannot deny the allure. When you water a plant gently, when you touch it softly, when you sing to it, are you only comforting yourself? Or is the plant, in its own alien way, responding? Defenders of their kind plants do more than cry out when hurt. Sometimes they fight back. When caterpillars chew on certain leaves, the plant releases chemicals that attract wasps, predators of caterpillars. In other words, the plant summons allies. When acacia trees in Africa are grazed too heavily by antelopes, they flood their leaves with tannins, making them toxic. Even more astonishing, they release ethylene gas into the wind, warning nearby trees to defend themselves too. This is not passive life. This is active resistance, a living defense system. If we call fear the awareness of threat and the will to resist it, then plants display a shadow of fear. But are feelings just illusions? Here we must pause. Do plants really feel? Or do they only mimic the outward signs of feeling? A human cry is tied to conscious experience, the inner flame of suffering. A plant's chemical cry may be just biochemistry, a mechanism without awareness. And yet, how can we be so sure? For centuries, people believed animals could not feel pain, treating their screams as mere noise. Science proved otherwise. Could we be making the same mistake with plants? The science of plant sensitivity: plants have no brain, no neurons, no nervous system. So how could they feel? But here's the twist. Plants do have electrical signals. They send impulses through their tissues at speeds similar to nerve conduction. They use hormones like serotonin, dopamine, and even glutamate, the very same chemicals that shape emotion and thought in animals. Some scientists now argue that plants may operate with a distributed intelligence. Instead of one brain, the whole body participates in sensing, responding, adapting. Every root tip, every leaf vein is part of a decentralized awareness. So perhaps the plant does not feel pain as we do, but experiences stress, danger, and relief in its own alien language. The ethical question. And here lies the haunting philosophical question. If plants do feel, or at least sense distress deeply, what does that mean for us? We cut them, cook them, eat them every day. Entire civilizations rise on wheat, rice, and corn, lives built on their silent sacrifice. If a carrot can remember stress, if a tree can cry out in drought, are we not surrounded by an ocean of silent suffering? Or is it simply the cost of life, written into creation itself, that one life must sustain another? A deeper truth. Maybe the truth is not that plants feel like us, but that we are not as separate from them as we believe. When we breathe, we inhale the oxygen they exhale. When we eat, we consume the energy they captured from the sun. When we live, we do so in partnership with them. Their distress, their resilience, their strange signals of sensitivity. They remind us that life is never cold or mechanical. Life, in all its forms, aches to survive. Perhaps that ache itself is what we call feeling. The takeaway. So, do plants feel? Science hesitates, offering only cautious answers. But the evidence of their cries, their defenses, Their memories suggests that something more than blind chemistry is at work. Plants may not weep as we do. They may not dream as we do, but they live with a quiet urgency, a hidden sensitivity, a mysterious awareness. And the next time you cut into a fruit, or walk through a forest, or hold a flower in your hand, pause. You may be holding not just matter, but a being that, in its own silent way, feels the forest is quiet now, or at least it appears so. The leaves rest after their silent conversations. The roots hum their underground symphony. The air, once filled with chemical whispers, is calm again. And yet, the silence feels heavy, charged, alive. As we drift toward the end of this journey, we are left with a haunting realization. Perhaps plants are not just background scenery in our lives. Perhaps they are part of a story older, deeper, and more mysterious than our imagination dares to believe. The illusion of separation. From the moment we are born, we are taught to see ourselves as separate. Humans here, animals there, plants somewhere beneath it all. Just resources, silent, unfeeling, existing only to serve. But this separation is an illusion. Every breath you take was exhaled by a leaf. Every meal you eat is a memory of sunlight captured in green cells. Every wooden chair, every cotton shirt, every fruit, every flower, all are fragments of lives that once swayed in the wind. So tell me, if we are stitched into their existence so completely, can we truly say we are separate? Or are we, in truth, walking forests disguised as flesh? Life as a circle, not a ladder. For centuries, humans imagined life as a ladder. At the top, us. Below us, animals. Beneath them, plants. At the very bottom, soil and stone. But what if life is not a ladder at all? What if it is a circle? A great ring in which every being holds hands with the next. Plants are not beneath us. They are beside us, holding us up, weaving the web of air and food and shelter without which we could not live even a single day. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, "We do not come into the world, we come out of it, as leaves from a tree." Maybe we are not the masters of plants. Maybe we are simply another flowering branch of the same ancient tree. The dream of the green world. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine a world without plants. The air grows thin, the rivers dry, the soil becomes dust, the animals starve, the cities crumble, and finally, humans vanish. Their breath silenced in the emptiness. Now, open your eyes. Look around you. Every green leaf, every blade of grass, every tree trunk you pass by is quietly holding the world together, dream by dream, breath by breath. It is not us keeping them alive. It is they who keep us alive. And perhaps they are not even aware of it. Or perhaps, in their own still way, they are dreaming us into existence. The philosophy of silence. Silence is terrifying to humans. We fill it with music, words, screens, endless chatter. We fear the stillness because in stillness, truth emerges. Plants are masters of silence. They speak without noise, move without walking, fight without weapons, remember without minds. Their silence is not emptiness, it is depth. A depth we rarely touch because we are too busy running. But if we ever paused long enough, truly paused, we might hear it. The dreamlike drift of existence itself, murmuring through roots and leaves, through veins and lungs, through us. Do they dream too? Here's a thought that lingers like smoke. Do plants dream? Not dreams of faces or stories, but dreams of sunlight, of water, of reaching higher into the sky. Maybe their dreams are not made of images, but of growth itself, a slow unfolding, a stretching toward infinity. And if they dream, then perhaps we are part of their dream. Perhaps humanity is just a flicker inside the great green mind of the earth. The mirror of plants. In truth, when we study plants, we are not only learning about them, we are learning about ourselves. Their hidden communication mirrors our own. Their memories echo our struggles. Their resilience reflects our will to live. They remind us that intelligence does not always look like ours, that feelings may not always wear a human face, that life is vaster, stranger, and more interconnected than we dare to admit. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all, to exist is to be sensitive. To grow is to be aware. To live is to reach outward, whether with roots or with arms, towards something greater. The dreamlike drift. And so, as this journey closes, let yourself drift with the thought. Every tree you pass is not just a tree. It is a library of silent wisdom. Every flower is not just decoration. It is a memory of stars, written in color and scent. Every field of grass is not just landscape. It is the living skin of the earth, breathing with you. We are not apart from this green world. We are woven into its fabric. And when we finally sleep, when our breath leaves us, it is plants that will carry it, transform it, and send it forward so life may continue. Perhaps then, to walk in a forest is not simply to wander among trees. Perhaps it is to wander inside a dream we did not make, but one that made us. And maybe, just maybe, when you close your eyes tonight, you will hear it. The dreamlike drift, the soft hum of leaves, the quiet heartbeat of a world that never truly sleeps. The journey we have just taken together was not an ordinary one. You didn't just listen to facts about plants. You walked into a hidden world, one that most people pass by every single day without ever noticing. But you stayed until the end, and that means something. It means you are not just curious. You are someone who longs to see the world more deeply, to listen more closely, to connect with the mysteries that surround us. And if tonight you felt even for a moment that stillness, that calm, that drifting sense of wonder, then imagine how many more secrets are still waiting for you, just beyond the next video, the next story, the next quiet dive into the unknown. This is only the beginning. So, before you leave, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, do you want this journey to end here? Or do you want to keep walking with me, deeper into the forest, into the ocean, into the stars, into the quiet corners of existence that are waiting for someone like you to notice them? If your heart whispers yes, then don't just walk away. Subscribe. Stay close. This channel is not just about knowledge. It's about creating a place where you and I can sit together, night after night, exploring what lies hidden beneath the surface. Every click of the subscribe button is like planting a seed that will grow into countless more journeys together. Stories that unfold slowly, gently, like petals in the dark. And every time you return, you will find yourself sinking deeper, feeling calmer, and maybe even sleeping more peacefully, knowing the world is richer than you once believed. So, if this touched you, let me ask you something. What did you feel during this journey? Did a certain image stay with you? The silent forest? The underground web of roots? The dream of the green world? Tell me in the comments. I will read them, and together we will continue weaving this conversation as if we too are part of that invisible network of voices. And if you want this dream to keep living, share this video with someone who needs a moment of calm, a pause in the chaos, a reminder that there is beauty and mystery even in the quietest corners of life. Sometimes, a single shared story can be the root that changes the way another person sees the world. For now, though, it is time to drift. Let your thoughts soften. Let your breath slow. Let the green memory of this journey settle gently into you. Carry it with you as you close your eyes tonight. And remember, this is not the end. It is only a doorway. When you are ready, step through it. Subscribe, join me again, and let's continue walking together, one story at a time, into the dreamlike drift of science, wonder, and silence. Good night, traveler. Until next time.